Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Scagz and yours truly, the Captain. And we have another episode for you guys this week. It's a crazy time. So what's up, buddy? Yeah.
This is a little glitchy. There we go. That might have fixed it. So
There we go.
Here we are. Got an interesting time coming up. First, before we get started, and
World War III.
Yeah, I know. Aside from that, I guess other stuff going on. We got a Halloween episode coming up soon. That should be fun. We're going to be doing another little skit.
Yes.
Exciting news. We're going to be going to the Libertarian Party convention again in Connecticut. That's on December 2nd. I will share some details with everyone because we are going to be hosting the debate between the candidates. It's going to be Dr. Rechtenwald. You might have remembered him from when we had him on a couple weeks ago. Joshua Smith. He's kind of like the front runner right now, Josh, I think, although it remains to be seen. Mike Termont, we had him on also in the summer. Really nice guy. Chase Oliver, Lars Mapstead, and Jacob Hornberger, who's run before on the Libertarian ticket. So we're going to be hosting this. We're going to be hosting this kind of / producing this. Larry Sharp is going to be working with us also. He's going to kind of be the moderator of the debate, and we'll kind of be in the background to give some color commentary at the very beginning and then probably at the very end, and we'll let the candidates do most of the talking. So should be fun. Excited for the opportunity.
Definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah. Shout out to the Libertarian Party of Connecticut. If you want to go to the event, it's in Cromwell, Connecticut at the Marriott Hotel, I believe, and you can get tickets at lpct.org/2023_speaker_event. A lot of really cool people are going to be there. Josie the Redhead Libertarian, Maj Touré, Clint Russell, we've had him on before. I'm not sure who this last guy is. Feng Shuo Zhu. He is a
Never heard of him.
Exiled Tiananmen Square activist. So Tiananmen Square in China. I mean, that was a whole, the Chinese Communist Party trying to crack down on dissidents way back in the day. So that should be interesting. I'm really interested to hear his story, right? Maybe we could try and yank him out of the crowd. You want to meet Maj? Yeah, Maj is the man. We love guns. Maj is a big gun guy, founder of Black Guns Matter. So we'll see if we could get in anybody's ear there, have them on. That'll be really cool. So for today's episode, like you said, I mean,
where do we begin?
Yeah.
I've been listening to like so many podcasts and like, I mean, I hate to tell you, Doom Nation, like we're following suit. There's only one thing to be talking about right now, but like in like the span of like a week, each day has almost been like its own topic.
Yeah, I mean, the main topic of the world is obviously the war between Israel and Hamas, Palestine. So we will talk about that, but I think we'll kind of shove that to later in the episode. I want to talk about first, and I want to play a video of Leon Panetta was on Fox News. He was the former director of the CIA, and he was finally asked a very difficult question about the Hunter Biden laptop story. I apologize to our libertarian audience if you've already heard this on Dave Smith's podcast. This is where I heard it first. This kind of got like lost in the shuffle of the war news going on. So if you listen to it on Dave's, we're kind of biting off of him, but I thought we could give our own take on the whole thing as well. And I thought this was so important because it kind of follows suit with what me and you talk about all the time, that they just say these things that are so obviously lies, like the regime. And this is going to be another example of that. So like the most maximum
We're going to be covering plenty of lies tonight.
The most maximum degree you could possibly think of. So it's about 2 minutes. Let's go over to that, get started. Again, Leon Panetta, he is the former director of the CIA. So we're shooting tall. We're shooting high here, Captain. We're going after the CIA. And he's one of the guys who signed off on that letter, the heads of the intelligence agencies that signed off saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So this guy has his fingerprints all over the election interference of, censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story. Back in the 2020 election. What was that, like a week or two before the actual election?
Yep.
Right? It was
like 2 weeks before.
Yeah, the New York Post couldn't share it on Twitter. It was discredited, before it got out, and a lot of people said had they known that this was real and it wasn't fake, they might have reconsidered who they voted for in the election. People who were on the fence, if there were any at the time. So, any other comments before we start this, or?
No, let's just start it because I already saw this. I gave you my opinion. I can't even speak of it on here. So,
I had to give Captain a stern talking to, but yes. All right, let's get rolling.
You're remiss. Obviously, the House is in chaos as they try to find a speaker, but they're investigating.
Let's already pause it. So this is recent, and this is Brett Baer from Fox News. You heard what he said? The House is in chaos because they can't find a speaker. Yeah. Remember we just talked about this? It's chaos. They're still fucking with that line. They have chaos. That they can't find a speaker.
They have to.
Yeah, I didn't.
Any word, like, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Right, like the nittiest of grittiest we are getting to, and just any extra word that they can throw in at this point to beat a dead horse, they're gonna. From here on out, it's only gonna get more and more. These phrases, the democracy, chaos, it's all gonna be amped up. It's all we're gonna be hearing from here on out, man.
Yeah, like keywords.
We're doing perfectly fine with no speaker, but there's chaos.
Yeah, that's so funny. I didn't even notice that until right this second. We just said chaos. So, all right, let's keep going.
The Hunter Biden situation. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that letter you signed on to from former intelligence officials saying that the laptop and the emails had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Obviously, the New York Post and others saying the Hunter Biden laptop letter was the real disinformation all along. That letter was used in the debate. I haven't asked you this, but do you have regrets about that now looking back, knowing what you know now?
Well, Brett, look, I was extremely concerned about Russian interference and misinformation. And we all know it. Intelligence agencies discovered that Russia had continued to push disinformation across the board. And my concern was to kind of alert the public to be aware that these disinformation efforts went on. And frankly, I haven't seen any evidence from any intelligence agency that was not the case.
You don't think that it...
Pause. He's doubling down. I can't... I believe it. I like...
Hunter Biden openly admitted, that is my laptop. Tried suing the computer store for releasing it, but since he signed the paperwork, the contract to get his laptop fixed, they have the right to do that. I mean, that is we talk about how people and bureaucrats and these elites are disconnected from reality. We literally have a former CIA head saying, I haven't seen anything saying that it's his. And then we have the actual guy saying it's his.
Right. Like you said, suing, to try and get it back. There's so many points I can make here. We'll keep going in here in a second. He is doubling down in a sense, like he's doing some sort of double speak. How about the fact that the FBI had the laptop, right? Like they actually physically had it. Now he's from the CIA, but you mean tell me like they didn't communicate before they decided to sign the letter of all the heads of the agencies?
Baloney.
Obviously they probably did, right? So he knew ahead of time, but while he did this, he's still doubling down now as if it didn't happen. Everyone knows it's fucking real. And then
and let's not also forget, like, he might be a former CIA. He's former, right? Yeah. Yes. They're still heavily connected. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way, no way, like, he turned in his gun and badge, his credentials, and went home and never heard another whisper again. Yeah.
It's like the mafia when you're in these agencies. Like, you're never truly out, Yeah. And this goes back to another point we made a long time ago. The heads of the agencies on the corporate press, right? Like, they retire or they're the formers, but then they're constantly on NBC, Fox, MSNBC, CNN. They're out there, like, pushing the agenda, the talking points of the regime, whatever it is. This is just another example of it right here. Literally, the former CIA. At least Ray, a smidge of credit here, like a difficult question to put him on the spot. Finally, this is like the first time this has ever been asked.
Part of my comments.
Yeah, this has been like the first time this has ever been asked to one of these guys. Let's keep going, and then we'll give more take on it.
It was real.
I think that disinformation is involved here. I think Russian disinformation is part of what we're seeing everywhere. I don't trust the Russians, and that's exactly why I was concerned that the public not trust the Russians either.
I don't want to dwell on this because we have bigger things to talk about and bigger urgency. But obviously, Hunter Biden said it was his laptop, and this investigation continues. So you don't have any regrets about doing what you did.
Look at the laughs. Look, I mean, like that's a nervous laugh of admission right there.
I don't have any regrets about not trusting the Russians.
Okay, Mr. Secretary.
No regrets. Good boy. Good boy, Leon Panetta. You did what you were supposed to do. Good boy. Good laptop.
I mean,
for the regime.
Blatantly, when he said, I believe disinformation was involved. Yeah, your disinformation.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that was an admission right behind the scenes.
Yeah. Like I said, kudos to Brett for at least asking it. He pulled back right away. Obviously, if he was to start hammering a former CIA head on live TV, that would have been it for his career. He'd have to hope there's some room in the Tucker Carlson camp to do some online interviews. But it's in your face at this point. I mean, remember we read that Time article about how people in the background saved democracy from Donald Trump.
They weren't,
and basically,
basically
like rigged the election. Not saying YouTube that the election was rigged.
It was
but
fortified.
Basically,
fortifying the election. That said,
yes, these elites in the background just to save democracy in the world. They had to fortify how much of it is got to be true at this point, where we literally have a CIA director being like, no, it was Russia. Russians hacked Hunter Biden's laptop, and Hunter Biden's like, no, it's my laptop. Like, what world we're getting? We have to be getting to a point closer. And me personally, in my experience, like, I think somewhat of the left is finally waking up. I've talked to a lot of new people who vote differently and stuff lately. And like, everybody's kind of like, Biden's just not it. Like, we shouldn't be going to war, all this stuff. So it's interesting. But like, at this point, like, there's still people who believe Russians interfered in the 2016 election. There's people like this mook who believe Russians hacked Hunter Biden. And the evidence just shows it's not there. Like, how far out of reality do you want to live?
Yeah, I'm going to have to just reference it on every single episode, I guess. But it reminds me of when Jen Psaki just couldn't say that you should eat healthy during COVID. I mean, this is the same thing. You can't eat healthy during COVID. You just got to get the vaccine, right? Like, no, it's Russian disinformation, even though every single person knows it's not, including Hunter Biden, including them who had it.
Even Brett, who said it.
Yeah, right.
Who said it.
They exchange nervous laughs because they know they're lying right on air. At least he knows he's lying. Again, good boy.
I mean, like, I can't give my God honest opinion, but like, what comes around, what goes around comes around. There's going to be a day in the future where Trump's going to get away with something. You know what I mean? Or people are going to feel like Trump's going to get away with something. You know what? Good. Pull up this video when Trump is blatantly, quote unquote, blatantly getting away with something, where this guy could come on there and we have stone cold evidence that this laptop has nothing to do with Russian disinformation. And you got a former head of the CIA who is living in La La Land, lying on mainstream media.
Yeah, and I guess that's their job to lie. How about the angle? I think the theme and what I titled so far this episode is called Blowback. I think the theme of this episode is going to be blowback. How about just thinking of this from Vladimir Putin's point of view, right? He knows if me and you figured this out, you don't think like Russian intelligence and Vladimir Putin didn't figure out that they're lying this whole time, trying to pin everything on them. And now they're even like Vladimir Putin knows that the American public knows that it really wasn't disinformation. But here is the former head of the CIA still saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So, like, from Vladimir Putin and Russia's point of view, they understand, like, oh no, their minds are made up in the U.S. regime, deep state. Their minds are made up that no matter what, we're their enemy, and they'll stop at nothing. They'll tell the most obvious, blatant lie.
There's no peace.
Right there. You know what, you see, that's exactly what I'm trying to get to. Right? Like, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. I don't see that. Like, there's no rationale. There's, like, no reasoning with these people.
No.
They just want us out, and they'll just use us as a punching bag for anything.
Yep.
The blowback of that would be, I don't know, like, obviously the war in Ukraine. How are you ever going to work with or try and, like, negotiate and build a bridge with Vladimir Putin? You know, like, it's just, it makes it difficult unless you clean house, unless you completely clean house.
Yeah.
But I understand what I'm trying to say. Like, the blowback is, man, you've really damaged relations with a nuclear superpower who's going to be around. No matter what.
That's all this administration has done is destroy relationships and just be an open bank to whoever wants to have a war. You know, we've just been betting on losing sides for the war. I don't think Israel's the losing side, but, you know, it just, that's what this administration is about. The things I've been listening to and what has gone on over the past 3 years, all these executive orders that Biden did to undo Trump stuff, all the open borders, the invasion on our southern border, endless supply of funds to Ukraine, endless supply of funds to Israel, no gas, the economy's in turmoil, people are spending more than they're making, huge inflation, the housing market's going to crash, we're on the brink of World War III. We were set up to fail, so when World War III happens, we lose and the New World Order comes in. I really feel like that's like what this like agenda almost is, you know, like this is the starting point to you live in the pods and you eat the bugs and you watch the porn. It's just this administration has done nothing but destroy us internationally and nationally to set us up for a complete disaster.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. So your assessment is that they want World War III as the scare event, the springboard into the New World Order taking over. Of whatever. I won't rule that scenario
there might
out.
be there might be a Captain Samurai episode on the horizon because I got conspiracies and theories for what is taking place.
I'm not going to rule that out. I lean more towards this is 75 years of awful policy rearing its ugly head all at once. And yes, it has to do, and sure, we could like, you know, we can split hairs on if it's like, if this is the intention or not. I don't know.
100% the intention.
Man, this is like everything like Scott Horton could have predicted is basically coming to fruition if no one ever finally tried to like right the ship. It just so happens to be after a guy, you know, for 4 years tried in some way to right the ship. And now it's maybe that was like the cataclysm. Man, we better really, you know, put the pedal to the metal here because we almost got the whole thing almost got unraveled.
I always said the whole reason why we are an endless supply of money to Ukraine is because you launder your money in Ukraine. And for 4 years, the bad guys did not make money under Trump. They had a scratch and claw for whatever crumbs they could get away with, and they could only focus on him. They couldn't have any wars. You know, I forget the name of the woman who just on TV was like, yeah, of course America can afford to fund two
Janet
wars.
Yellen.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You know why America can afford to fund two wars? Because the taxpayers are going to spend, you know, we're going to use taxpayer money to fund the wars. The American public's going to suffer. The military industrial complex is now involved in two wars. So if they were going to make $1 billion, now they're going to make $2 billion. They're doubling their profits for the war machine. And all the political elites are going to get their pockets lined from all these military contracts.
Yeah, of course.
Of course we can afford two wars.
I don't think they're actually going to collect any of that money through taxation, by the way. There's not enough taxes in the world to pay for the amount of money they spend. It's through printing and inflation is the real tax, right? So it's a tax.
Well, okay, so still, going back to my point of the New World Order comes with digital currency, one world currency. We print and spend so much money. And you could even bring up Trump was the first one to kick this nightmare of printing money off. But still, we are being set up. We are printing money and creating inflation to the point that we're going to need a reset. And if we are involved in a war, and God forbid we lose a war and this reset comes, boom, digital currency, one world currency. I could see how it all rolls in together, man.
Sure. Those are all things to always like be on guard for, right? And as soon as you hear them, that shoots a red flag off. Going back to Janet Yellen, it's hysterical the way like government actors like that speak. Like, yeah, we could afford two wars. Yeah, we're only $33 trillion in debt. Imagine if, I don't know.
What's two
imagine
wars?
Imagine if I was like $33 million in debt, right? And I told my wife, yeah, I could afford 2 more houses. Why not? Yeah, sure. Like that's how they speak. It's preposterous. It's not based on any sort of reality whatsoever.
And on top of it, let's not rule it out. China invades.
Oh yeah, that could be
Taiwan.
The third chess piece.
And boom, we're gonna fund a third war.
Yeah. I think at that point, it's all hands on deck, and we're going in like full boots on the ground. World War III. Somebody made the point to me on Twitter the other day. I was kind of making this point that you're making about like money and funding and shit like that. And someone on Twitter was like, well, the money that goes into the military-industrial complex in war, that comes back to the American people because we sell the weapons and the missiles and things like that. I'm like, no, yeah, like, do you own any of the military-industrial complex? No. Yeah. Do you work for the military-industrial complex? No. So, like, I don't know, maybe like a handful of people who work there and have a job. Maybe they kind of like get to keep their job because they're busy. But ultimately, the people who are gonna like benefit from this are the politicians who are invested probably behind the scenes because they know they can kind of control
the bureaucrats.
Right. The people who own Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, the elites.
We should start buying stocks, man.
The elites, right? And I'm like, and don't forget what you just said before. Where are they getting the money from this? From taxation or inflation? So the money's being extracted from the people first, and then it's being redistributed to the military-industrial complex. It's not like it's going actually back into the people. It's first being extracted from everyone and then being given to a handful of well-connected people.
So have you seen the trend on TikTok at all of girl math?
Maybe.
Maybe.
It sounds familiar.
Where like the husband will be like, honey, explain to me what you just said. And she's like, well, I had a 10% off coupon and it's free shipping and handling. So basically what I just bought for $30 is free, right? Because it came out to like 30% off and she spent $30. So she imagines that her item is now free and he was calling it girl math. We should do a TikTok of government math.
We should. Yeah, I've actually seen videos of women finding that out before. Like figuring out inflation kind of by accident.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll start a little skit like that. Government math. I liked
government math.
I liked the TikTok, Instagram, whatever trend of the Roman Empire of women asking their
everybody
their
thinking, yeah.
And it was funny because it's women are like en masse finding out that men think like deeply about history and like abstract things, and like men are like on average pretty deep thinkers, and they think about the Roman Empire pretty often. Although that was actually,
I never really think about it. Like,
well, that tells me a lot. You must not be a deep thinker, I guess, Captain.
It's fine. You couldn't find the bottom of my thoughts.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Let's get into what's going on between Israel and Palestine. Let's start here. I asked you this kind of before we started, but you kind of kept it close to the chest. When we were on with Sergeant Samurai last week, you admittedly, your position. So real quick, hang on. Your position was kind of just fuck it, burn them all or whatever, right? But then at the same time, you're like, I'm not really an expert in this area, or like in Benjamin Nethanyahu. Me too. So weeks gone by, I've like with anything, one of these things happen. We do a podcast. I start doing research. I start trying to learn as much as I possibly can so I could give a better perspective. So I'm interested in your perspective, though, because you're kind of coming from somewhat of a blank slate as best as you could.
My life has changed a lot over the past month. So this week's been a bit hectic to learn new things. But honestly, I learned a little bit more about like Israel and Palestine and the key players and stuff? Yeah, a little bit. But I'm just taking this and comparing it to Ukraine and COVID and any other major situation that we've been involved in. And truthfully, I'm pro nukes all the way through. Just with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, nuke them. Palestine, Israel, nuke them. Just there's that meme of it's a picture of the world and the only country on it, the only continent on it is America.
Yeah.
And it says the only place my tax money should be going. Mm-hmm. I'm fully America first. Okay. I don't think we should be getting involved. This has nothing to do with us. The one thing the biggest thing I've learned is Biden is the weakest, dumbest president we've ever had in the history of this country. He still likes to talk about his son, Bo, whatever the hell his name is, because he still thinks like it's 9/11 and like having this like patriot connection is going to help you, but it ain't. Announcing that he's going over there and risking his life isn't making him look any stronger. And he's essentially just made this country non-existent. We have no borders. We will let anybody in. During wartime, we will let anybody in. And we are just throwing money out the window. Mm-hmm. It does. As long as you're not American, you could get money from this administration.
Yeah.
So, but war-wise, what I've been discussing with people is just the reminder, because a lot of people, I don't want to get too conspiratorial and stuff, but like, like different strokes for different folks. Well, different psyops for different folks.
Sure.
Like
Taylor Swift.
The Ukraine, the Ukraine fucking war exposed all, the Ukrainian owned politicians and exposed the left for the warmongers they are. This is exposing all the Zionist owned congressmen and women and bureaucrats and stuff, and is psyoping the right now and stuff like that. I continuously talk to people about propaganda. They hold a press conference with all the dead bodies around them in Palestine, I believe that was. Did you see what I'm talking about? They had some. Yeah, there was this press conference that they had, and literally it's a podium, and the guy is standing there talking, and there's body bags all around him, and there's people leaning up against the podium bleeding, and this is a fucking movie. Mm-hmm. This is a movie. We've been through. Vietnam was televised. Desert Storm was after that. I was very young when Desert Storm happened, so I really don't remember it. We lived through 20 years of a never-ending Iraqi freedom. We had what took place in Ukraine. We have bombings all over the world, what goes on in Yemen and all this stuff. Not once do we see people stacking dead bodies. Now, all of a sudden, everything is about death and gore. The propaganda machine is full steam ahead, because they're playing on anybody's heartstrings. They're going for the most extreme that they could get, because if they're not extreme anymore, you're going to lose your base. They can't just tell us Russia man bad anymore. Too many people are awake. They got to show dead babies.
Right. So
and AI versions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that you make a very good point in general. I think propaganda has always existed. I think Americans, by and large, don't know what propaganda is somehow.
No.
They're getting a crash course quickly.
They don't. Yeah. I spoke to a family member recently, and that person is very liberal, voted for Joe Biden, has since woke up, helped fuck up the planet. And, like I had spoken to her about, like, you got to understand, like, at first, at least I was happy of her. She was like, we shouldn't be calling for war on any front. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, good. Don't be a war hawk. You were just a war, you were ready to kill all the Russians, but now you're dialing it back. Yeah. So I'm like, good, that's good. And then like we were talking about stuff, and right away with the dead babies, and I was like, you got to understand, there's so much propaganda. They're trying to make you emotional, trying to make you angry, sad, scared. Yeah. So you don't do what I'm doing right now and critically think.
Right. And there, in the past 2 weeks, there's been two standout scenarios of this from both sides, being the Israeli government and Hamas in Palestine. The first one was like in the first week, the 40 beheaded babies story that when Hamas launched the attack, that they beheaded 40
that
babies.
Biden got fact checked.
That they beheaded 40 babies in one of these towns, and I know what propaganda is, right? So like I try to wait when one of these things happens to see, if I could really get the truth behind it. And it turns out like the source of, who saw the 40 beheaded babies was an Israeli soldier. And then the Israeli soldier reported it to an Israeli state TV reporter. So it's like, oh, okay, well, it's coming straight from the Israeli government, like from a soldier, and then to the state television, right? So it's not the most objective source of cross-referencing if this happened. And at the time, look, and I'm not even going to say that Hamas doesn't kill babies, right? Or didn't kill babies. Yeah. But at the time, right, and this is the point I was trying to make to everyone, because people like Ben Shapiro, they were losing their shit. And rightfully so. If you hear a story of 40 babies where like it's beheaded, it's beyond the pale of insanity for someone to do an act like that.
They got to go extreme.
So it's it's with the understanding that that's beyond, like, killing babies is bad, beheading babies is even more insane. The most insane thing you could possibly do. But it turns out that didn't really happen, right? It kind of was an over-exaggeration. No one really knows. And now it's kind of been another week. It's gone away, right? That story, right? And I'm not saying Hamas hasn't killed any babies.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Now, it's a vastly, vastly different story. We are comparing apples to oranges here. But the scenario and the way the media took it up and ate it up, and the people who consume the media eat it up. So everybody right away bought into beheaded babies. What about the ghost of Kiev?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's this ace fighter jet who nobody knows who he is, killing Russians left and right. Nope. Story wasn't real.
Right. Yeah.
Just
that's all textbook
just
propaganda.
literally make it like a math equation. If something happens that makes you upset, scared, afraid, or angry, and then every media journalist starts repeating it word for word, and then the government starts saying, "Yep, that's right. That's what."
That's foreign policy.
Give it
now.
a day.
Yeah. Give it a day. Right. That's a good. That's a good. It's a good policy for you to have. Going back to the beheaded babies thing, rightfully so. If 40 Jewish babies were beheaded, I understand why Ben Shapiro and everyone, Jewish people particularly, are freaking out, and they're now emotional. They're angry. And they're in a sense, they're calling for genocide against Palestinians because of this, right? I get it. They get emotional.
They're not essentially. They 100% were calling for genocide.
And that, then politicians, the state behind the scenes, they then have that blank check, right, to do whatever they want, to kind of get away with whatever they want. Let's flash forward now to this week, right? There was I think it was 2 days ago.
Oh, the hospital?
The hospital in Gaza, right? There is a bombing of a hospital. It's at nighttime. There's camera footage, hard to see what's going on at nighttime, right? There's a huge explosion. Everyone's like, "Oh, it was the Israeli Air Force. They've bombed the hospital." I think there's even more there that could be kind of dug into. But everyone's like, 500 people are dead. 500 to 1,000 people are dead. I think what you were referencing, the people at the podium with dead body bags, I think that's what it was from. That this was a press conference at this hospital. I think. The next day, the sun comes up, right? The sun comes up. People start taking videos around the hospital. I don't know. Hospital looks pretty good. It's not really that destroyed. It looks like the parking lot got hit primarily by whatever the bomb was. I don't know. Like, did 500 people really die? How do we know? We're taking kind of Hamas's word for it in that scenario. But on the other, and on the flip side, who got really angry, right? The leftists. And even some of the libertarians, rightfully so, right? Because they think, look, Israel again. And Israel has some track record of airstriking hospitals and civilians and things like that, casualties of war. But again, like, you immediately have an emotional reaction to it, and it just spirals this thing out of control. It's like a never-ending cycle. That, again, like, I think the rule of thumb here, especially in this war, should be, like you were saying before, when one of these things happens that are so crazy, that again would any good person would make them get emotional. That should immediately set off a light bulb in your brain like, hang on. I'm not there, so I don't know exactly what happened. Give it a day, and let me see how it plays out before I formulate my thoughts and how I want to move forward from here. I would hope, right now, and again, most people on Twitter and whatnot, they're just normal people, right? They're not like in positions of power or politicians. I would hope that that's the thought process of most politicians, right? Right? I would hope, right? Or at least
make that a clip, because that's one of the best jokes we ever told.
Right? Right. I think it's actually quite the opposite. I'm sorry, maybe not quite the opposite. I think they understand what me and you were talking about, right? They get it. They get it like that you should wait.
Well, that's why they censor us.
They're the ones who fan the fire of these things, right? They get it. They get it, but then they'll act outraged, and then they'll act like this, and then they'll act like that. If actually, we're going to criticize Biden here in a second, and we're going to get to an article about Benjamin Nethanyahu. If I give Biden any credit whatsoever, maybe this is because he's just half asleep all the time, and he's got dementia, and he's 1 foot in the grave. He has been pretty calm. And he's trying, and his speech, which we're going to criticize him for later here, and point out how he's a hypocrite, but his at least demeanor hasn't been emotional, at least, right? That's saying something.
I'm going to go ahead and say though he has no idea what's going on.
Probably either that, or he's just a stone cold sociopath killer. But go ahead.
Didn't he start a speech saying he was in the Senate?
Yeah, probably
recently.
Yeah, he could have said he's working for good humor too. I mean, who knows at this point. All right, I want to get onto an article here, if you want, Cap. Trying to stick with the theme of blowback and learning about this conflict in general. And like I was telling you, man, like I don't know much about Benjamin Nethanyahu. We're experts in freedom, not in Israeli politics. But I do know that Netanyahu has been prime minister all the time. Like he's all the time. He's prime minister constantly for the past fucking like 50 years. He's involved. So this story came out from the Times of Israel. I'm going to read it a little bit. It's not that long. And it says, for years, Netanyahu propped up Hamas. Now it's blown up in our faces. The premier's policy of treating the terror group as a partner at the expense of Abbas and Palestinian statehood has resulted in the wounds that will take Israel's years to heal from. By Tal Schneider. Let's see. Go down. What's going on here? For years, the various governments led by Benjamin Nethanyahu took an approach that divided power between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, bringing Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to his knees while making moves that propped up the Hamas terror group. The idea was to prevent Abbas or anyone else in the Palestinian Authority's West Bank government from advancing toward the establishment of a Palestinian state. Thus, amid this bid to impair Abbas, Hamas was upgraded from a mere terror group to an organization with which Israel held indirect negotiations via Egypt, and one that was allowed to receive infusions of cash from abroad. Hamas was also included in discussions about increasing the number of work permits Israel granted to Gazan laborers, which kept money flowing into Gaza, meaning food for families, and the ability to purchase basic products. Israeli officials said these permits, which allow Gazan laborers to earn higher salaries than they would in the enclave, were a powerful tool to help preserve calm. Toward the end of Netanyahu's fifth government, imagine that. So, like I said, this guy's prime minister all the time. His fifth government.
About 5 decades now, probably.
I'm just saying towards the end of his fifth government. I guess he's on his sixth now because he's back in charge again. Approximately 2,000 to 3,000 work permits were issued to Gazans. This number climbed to 5,000, and during the Bennett-Lapid government rose sharply to 10,000. Since Netanyahu returned to power in January 2023, the number of work permits has soared to nearly 20,000. Additionally, since 2014, Netanyahu-led governments have practically turned a blind eye to the incendiary balloons and rocket fire from Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel has allowed suitcases holding millions of Qatari cash to enter Gaza through its crossings since 2018 in order to maintain its fragile ceasefire with the Hamas rulers of the Strip. Most of the time, Israeli policy was to treat the Palestinian Authority as a burden and Hamas as an asset. Far-right MK Bezalel Smotrich, now the finance minister in hardline government and leader of the religious Zionism party, said so himself in 2015. According to various reports, Netanyahu made a similar point at a Likud faction meeting. Likud is like his political party. in early 2019 when he was quoted as saying that those who oppose a Palestinian state should support the transfer of funds to Gaza because maintaining the separation between the Palestinian Authority and the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza would prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. While Netanyahu does not make these kind of statements publicly or officially, his words are in line with the policy that he implemented. I was also listening to something Scott Horton was talking about where Netanyahu was like at a private party and he got recorded talking about this privately to people. So it's not just here. The same messaging was repeated by right-wing commentators who may have received briefings on the matter or talked to the Likud higher-ups and understood the message. Bolstered by this policy, Hamas grew stronger and stronger until Saturday, Israel's Pearl Harbor, the bloodiest day in its history when terrorists crossed the border, slaughtered hundreds of Israelis, and kidnapped an unknown number under the cover of thousands of rockets fired at towns throughout the country's south and center. The country has known attacks and wars, but never on such a scale in a single morning. One thing is clear, the concept of indirectly strengthening Hamas while tolerating sporadic attacks and minor military operations every few years went up in smoke Saturday. Just a few days ago, Asaf Pazilov, a reporter for the Cannes public broadcaster, tweeted the following. The Islamic Jihad organization has started a noisy exercise very close to the border in which they practice launching missiles, breaking into Israel, and kidnapping soldiers. The difference between Islamic Jihad and Hamas doesn't matter much at this point. As far as the state of Israel is concerned, the territory is under the control of Hamas, and it is responsible for all the training and activities there. Pop up. Hamas became stronger and used the auspices of peace that Israelis so longed for as cover for its training, and hundreds of Israelis have paid with their lives for this massive emotion. The terror inflicted on the civilian population in Israel is so enormous that the wounds from it will not heal for years, a challenge compounded by the dozens abducted into Gaza. Judging by the way Netanyahu has managed Gaza in the last 13 years, it is not certain that there will be a clear policy going forward. Well. Do you remember on our last episode?
The turntables have turned.
The turntables. Yeah. Do you remember in our last episode, we kind of started with, rightfully so, we were trying to warn about how the war drums were beating with Iran. And everyone was like, whoa, the $6 billion. It was Iran. Biden, $6 billion. They're funding Iran. They funded this attack. No, actually, it was Benjamin Nethanyahu in Israel all this time. They've been kind of under the table funding Hamas. And I understand what they're trying. And I kind of even get it. If you understand the region, the West Bank and Gaza are two separate areas. They're separated by, and in between is Israel. So the two groups of Palestinians who live there can't easily communicate and get along with each other, right? So they're kind of trying to pit the two of them together to try and make sure that these people can't unite to oppose us, right? And he supported Hamas in an extent to kind of try and destabilize the Palestinians in some way. Now it's come back around, bit them in the ass. A lot of people are dead. It always, seems to circle back to some corrupt elite politician who's been in charge all the time and has always got his finger on the policy button. What are you gonna say? Go ahead.
It stands true not only for America but any world leader, anyone who is involved in foreign affairs and foreign aid. What does the beginning of Dave Smith's podcast say? You want to know who we're fighting next? Just see who we're funding now.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened in Israel.
It doesn't apply for just America. That's for probably any state.
It's any world leader who deals in foreign affairs.
Yeah.
You're probably funding your enemy right now. I fully believe there we'll be at war with Ukraine if things do not go up in smoke and the world cracks in two from World War III, IV, and V taking place at the exact same time, and we ever end some type of a war and come back to a margin of normalcy where we don't need to live in pods and stuff. I believe the next war will be against Ukraine. They're flush with trillions of dollars and military equipment, and they're bound to do something stupid with it, or we'll just pay them to do something stupid with it so we could go into another war and crank up the war machine once again.
Yeah, or you see some sort of Nazi terrorist movement come out of there that's angry with us for not having backed them to the end, and then they lost.
Yeah. Or the Nazis want to attack us for helping the Jews in Israel.
Right, maybe. Yeah, who knows, man? Right. Again, blowback. This is what Ron Paul was talking about all those years ago. If a terror, and it's not impossible that a terrorist attack might happen here in the United States. We had this this day of jihad, last Friday, but nothing happened, right? But and I think, and it's interesting to see some comment real quickly on that. Like some of these right wing commentators seemed excited that yes, if this happens, then this justifies everything I've been saying the past week. Like just beating the war drum type. I'm like, look, man, I'm not saying
that's where we're at.
Yeah, if there is an honest to God real Hamas terrorist attack in the United States, it'll be tied, of course, to poor border security and things like that. But primarily, it's blowback from poor foreign policy of supporting Israel against them, which then they're pissed off about. Otherwise, they don't actually give a fuck about us in America. Like they don't care. They don't care about our fucking freedom.
Your government hates you and they want you dead. Here's something I was saving for Garrett, but we're at a pretty good point to bring it up. The southern border is wide open. I've been talking about this grand scheme to undermine America so we fail in this next world war and we have to enter into a one world government, right? I think terrorists from Iran have been caught at the southern borders, correct?
I haven't seen
that. There's been a couple. Okay, I've heard
that.
several. Yeah, I've heard a couple of people on different podcasts like Tim Pool and stuff talk about some. I don't know where the terrorists came from, but known affiliates of terrorist groups have been arrested at the southern border and some have gotten away. What if all of a sudden there's a call for a day of jihad, right? And instead of bombings, instead of suicide bombings, they do mass shootings, right? With the good old AR-15. And then Biden's like, well, you know what? Because of all these mass shootings, we have to suspend the Second Amendment or something like that. Couldn't you?
Yeah. When that big and like
you said it and like you said it and convenient,
and like the Hamas person
a reason to go to war,
went to like a gun show and bought the gun there or something. Oh man, that would work out perfectly.
We get to go to war. We have a bad guy. We suspend the Second Amendment. Guns are bad. Woo! I mean, who it seems like type shit.
And it seems like who would be cheering on all of these things would be conservatives, MAGA people, America First, supposed people. Man, am I disappointed in them right now.
I'm disappointed in you for being disappointed in them.
I'm the white-pilled person here. I try to be optimistic or hopeful.
I understand that, but the one just because the MAGA crowd has been the crowd that has been persecuted for the past almost 8 years now, 6-7 years now, it doesn't mean that the majority of them are just these brain dead mooks, man. I've said it time and time again. I love America. Yeah, I love America, but we are a wildly uneducated group of people. And like I said earlier in tonight, in just this conversation, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah,
there's going to be psyops that trigger the left, and there's going to be psyops that trigger the right. I actually, in a Q conspiracy sphere right now, believe that we have exposed the left since 2015, right? And we've continuously been exposing the left for the loons that they are. I think over the next year or X number of time frame, it's time we start exposing the right.
Well, these bad faith actors.
Yes. We start because look, there's two different wings of government, but they're attached to the same bird. We know they're in cahoots with each other. We know Republicans, or majority of them, are cowards, not because they're cowardice, but it's easy to be cowardice because then they don't have to step up to the bat and expose themselves, and they could still get their deals under the table. They're just as corrupt as Democrats. And I think this part of the quote unquote Q, anon, whatever, could be exposing the right. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You should have never given the right and the majority of the MAGA nation the benefit of the doubt that they wouldn't fall.
I never gave them the benefit of the doubt, I'd say. I'm just optimistic that it seems like they learned their lesson, at least on war. that 20 years of war had taught people, all right, like, interventions are not good, especially Ukraine, right? They're right on that. That was bad. But it kind of points back to what I said last episode. It seems like, well, maybe that was a bit of Biden derangement syndrome and why they oppose Ukraine, right? I've come to see, like I said to you off episodes, like, this is why I'm a libertarian, right? Like, they're right about everything, and they're on the right side of everything every time. Like they're not just like taking an opposing side because the other side, as you like to sometimes say, well, anything they do, I'm just going to take the opposing side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, no, it's just in a sense, like,
I do that to be an asshole,
yeah,
though.
Yeah, it's the difference between, it's like taking an actual principled stance and believing in something, and then when it matters most, actually sticking to your principles, like Ron Paul did, right? Like, that's what people on the right are lacking right now, and people on the left obviously have none of. Like, okay.
The one thing I've learned in my 34 years of life is, like, you said, you would have thought the right would have learned its lesson, but yeah, maybe so. I assume a lot of people learn their lesson, but people only learn the lesson when they fall flat on their face from learning it. You know what I mean? Like, when you get a puppy and it pees on the floor, and you say, "Oh no, don't do that," and then all it hears is you in this soft voice saying, "Oh no, don't do that," and there's nothing that happens to the puppy. Pees on the floor again. "Oh no, don't do that." Pees on the floor again. "Oh no, don't do that." It hasn't learned a lesson. You think you're teaching the puppy a lesson. Now, I don't condone abusing animals, but I can promise you, when that puppy pees on the floor and you roll up that newspaper and you put the fear of God in him or her, they stop peeing on the floor.
Right.
You have 2 dogs. You have 3 dogs. I've had 2 dogs. Tried and true method. And I'm not saying to abuse animals by any measure, but you have to correct these issues, and some have to be forcefully correct. And a lot of the right and a lot of MAGA, no, they haven't fallen on their face. They haven't gotten the rolled up newspaper yet.
Yeah.
Just like we had that conversation off the air. I'm sorry. Just like the conversation we had off the air, where somebody who was appalled that women wouldn't be drafted into the next war, and for the sole sake of saying woman power, we should be allowed to be drafted. Now World War III's on the horizon, and everybody wants to be a fucking housewife.
Right.
You deserve to go to the fucking Marines and serve in the front lines.
No, they don't, right? The principled take is the take that I had on our episode a long time ago about this. No, the draft is wrong, right? Like, we're free or we're slaves, right? You can't turn around and be like, no, you have to go do this, right? Regardless of whatever you look like, whatever it is you think, like, no, either I'm a free person in America with liberty and justice for all, or I am a slave at the behest of the government, or at any time they could declare an emergency and you have to go fight this war. I'm not saying that they can't be like, look, there's a war. We need people to help. Does anyone want to volunteer? Yeah. Right? Like, that's different. For them to draft is essentially saying, you're our slave. Get in there and go to the meat grinder now because we said so. That should be, everyone should oppose it. So I disagree with that.
And that's fair enough. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but what to bring on to, to circle back to my point, all these people who are in favor of women being in a draft, now that the draft is potentially around the corner, the lesson has started to be learned.
Yeah, maybe you're right. That's a form of them.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a form of them hitting rock bottom. Maybe for the right wingers, like
falling,
maybe for the right wingers, it's like, Trump losing again, or getting thrown in jail for like something like January 6th, or a meme. That's kind of like, what was it yesterday? The protest in Washington D.C. This group.
You made a very good point on that. Yeah, I was all for arresting them, but you're calling for the end of a war. So
like this group of Jews, and like is probably tied to some leftists. They are pro-Palestine, like not for the same reasons that libertarians are taking like a nuanced take on this whole thing. For different reasons, but they're pro-Palestine, and they had a protest and they were holding up signs, ceasefire. And they went into what's interesting. They did not actually go into the Capitol building. They went into the Cannon building, right, which is like a building across the street next door. It's the same building that AOC works in, and where she pretended like she was being threatened on January 6th, but she wasn't, right, because she wasn't in the Capitol
Another
building.
one disconnected from reality.
Isn't it fucking ironic that now it's the right-wingers who are lying and making up shit? They're the ones who are saying, and even me at the beginning, I not that I was lying, but I honest to God thought that they went into Capitol building because everyone was reporting that they were in the Capitol building. So I made a clip and I referenced the Capitol building. And then later I'm looking at the photos. I'm like, this doesn't look like the Capitol building on the inside. This looks like a different building. I did some more research. Turns out it's the Cannon building. And everyone on the right, this is an insurrection. They're making the low-hanging fruit point. This is an insurrection. They should be arrested. They should be thrown.
Well, it's principal politics now.
The book should be thrown at them. Yeah. And it's like, well, hang on. What do you mean? But no. I thought we don't want that. I thought we don't like that. And then at the end of the day, and I'll have a tweet of the week about this. Like all they're saying is we want a ceasefire. What is so evil about that?
I'm pretty sure you've coined the principal politics now. The left has set a principle, so now the right wants to push it on to other people. But as in your statement, you were like, no, we should be allowed to enter the Capitol buildings. We should be allowed to protest in the Capitol buildings, especially if we are protesting to have a ceasefire for whatever side it is. It comes down to I heard this term and I really like it. Relative morale? No.
Moral relativism.
Moral relativism. Your morals are good as long as it's relative to my agenda.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Instead of right. You've been listening to a lot of libertarians, right? And then there's moral objectivism, right? Which could be tied to, we reference a lot of time, like objective reality. Like that's a rock, this is blue. Morality is just morality. Morality shouldn't be relative. It should be objective. If you murder someone, that's bad. It's not good. It's not like, well, I murdered a Palestinian, therefore it's good. And then when the Palestinian murders me,
I'm scot-free.
It's bad.
We're good.
You know what I mean? Like, right. There should be a principle.
When the right protests at the Capitol, it's bad. When the left protests at the Capitol, it's good.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're right. We should try and take the principle take, and then I think also a lesson from Ron Paul is like it's like the most value in us even saying anything are in moments like this when people who are even our friends have kind of lost the plot. Like, okay, that's when what we say matters most. We're going to be principled on something, try to help them and steer them back the right way. I'm thinking about this protest and everybody's behavior the last couple of days. My God, I've been thinking a lot about Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party time, right? It seems like similar in a way where these things are happening that's making the two sides hate each other even more. When they were starting to maybe figure out, maybe the extremes are starting to figure out, like, maybe the powers that be are not so good, and there's more of this.
Just when the left started hating Biden,
right? And now you have like right wingers calling for people to the same punishment of January 6th on left wingers.
Yeah,
I don't know, like that sets off a red flag in my mind. Like,
it's hard. People want revenge, man. It's people want, and you know what? It really from the right. And I'm fully open for exposing the right. But what it comes down to is they're looking for revenge, but they're looking for it in the wrong place.
Yes. Someone today tweeted at me like, look, like who holds the gun right now? Like I made the reference of like the ring, the government being the ring of power. And they're like, well, who holds the gun or who holds the ring of power? It's the left, the leftists. I'm like, I don't know, man. Do they really, though? Like, is Joe Biden and the administration, like, woke leftists, really? I don't really think that they are. I think that's all just a facade, a shield. Like, they're not true believers in this thing. Like, these people that you're at, like, these woke, insane leftists, that might have went in this building yesterday, they're not, like, in government part specifically.
Yeah.
Like, is Leon Panetta, who we just referenced before, is he, like, a woke, insane, progressive leftist? Nah. You know what I mean? But I'm sure he'll talk about diversity,
goes home and he puts
equity,
his pajamas on.
Inclusion. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, these people are crony fascists in a sense. They're not really, I mean? They're just using that shit there. So for you to be like, oh, well, yeah, we should throw normal, average idiots in prison because they did something we don't like. Who's going to throw them in prison? Who are you going to give more power to throw them in prison? The same people who are going after you right now. So that's not a good strategy. It's not a good tactic. It's failed already once. Let's not do it again. That's the blowback of supporting it, right?
But that's what I was trying to say. Like, the fact that you were so upset with Republicans, like, nah, I see. It's all traps. It's all traps, and eventually you're gonna fall into one.
Maybe it's
inevitable. And we obviously didn't see Palestine, Israel coming. Me and you personally did not see this on our radar. Something much more on our radar was China and Taiwan. And you had said from the jump that, all the Republicans oppose Ukraine, but all the Republicans are going to favor Taiwan. We just got blindsided by a different war. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But you were never wrong. We were just wrong about the war.
Right. Yeah. Again, we weren't thinking it was going to be, Islamic fundamental terrorism that was again back. They tried this one again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a good point. So, just a warning to everyone. Like, again, think before you speak, perhaps. And what you say, because what you say will add fuel to the fire of this never-ending shitstorm that we tend to find ourselves in.
You take a page. If you're a fan, you're part of Doom Nation. We'll get into tweets of the week after this, but take a page from the Two Doom Men playbook, if you will. Scagz and I, obviously, we talk throughout the week. We're good friends and all this stuff, but obviously we discuss the show and when we want to record and all this stuff. Scagz wanted to do it earlier in the week. I had availability later in the week, and Scagz said, well, that's good because Joe Biden's going to Israel and we'll see what happens and we'll let it play out. That's what the Two Doom Men have been doing for 220 episodes now or something like that. Just let these situations play out for at least 24 hours and your whole perspective will change. Now, we didn't really get into Joe Biden going over there because nothing huge other than another $100 billion check is being written came out of all this. I got conspiracies. I had ideas and theories, but you know what I mean? Like, we let it happen before we ran into it blind. And we didn't see a full story there just yet. You know what I mean? Like, take the page out of our book.
We were limited, personally, me and you, by obviously time, working real jobs and other things as well. But it actually, like, in the world of social media and algorithms and things like that, it's not like a good business model to be nuanced and, like, wait. It really isn't. I'll just be dead honest with you.
I agree.
It's a good business model to do what Ben Shapiro's doing. Just make immediate, and on the other side, like Hassan Piker.
AI burn babies.
Immediate reaction videos. Don't wait for any confirmation. Just go out there and rah your troops, and you get like a lot of followers, a lot of views from that. But look, I don't know. Like we were talking about with Garrett last week, like we're good faith participants. I'm not going to do that.
Truth is profitable.
I'm not going to do that. In the long run, right? Truth is profitable. But in the short run, it's not. People like our emotional creatures. We're animals.
Like the Nazis, we're playing the long game.
But on the good side, yes. All right, let's do tweets of the week. They are, at least on my end, they are applicable to what we were just talking about this.
I really begrudgingly went on Twitter because once all this went down, Twitter became a shit show.
Yeah, well, it's a war zone. You know, it's only going to be more of a war
on
zone.
A regular day.
Yeah,
now
right now
during an actual war zone.
Yeah. All right, let's start here. So my first one is from Tom Woods. And he says, it's easy to say women don't have penises. It's harder to say, I wish everyone well, but will not allow my country to get sucked into another war. I thought this was fucking great because Tom Woods, who's a genius in the libertarian movement, is kind of making the point that I've made previously where it's easy to oppose the woke shit because it's so for on the right for conservatives, but the real psyop will come for war, right? Like, but we'll get you on a war. Or whatever, we'll get you to support a war. Yeah, so
different strokes for different folks.
And remember when we were talking about the Republican debate? The first one, one of our best episodes. And we picked the war because that was the only place they disagreed. They all agreed on woke bad, right? Yeah, woke bad. Yeah, we agree too. That's not interesting anymore at this point. Like, do you have any actual critical thoughts on anything else? So
woke culture is dying.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's so stupid. It's how often could you fucking talk about men want to be women and women want to be men or whatever. It's fucking retarded.
Yeah. Okay. So I found this funny. Obviously not based on our opinions. Who's it from? You gotta scroll up. I can't.
Mostly Peaceful Memes. It's a good page.
Mostly Peaceful Memes. It is a picture of the protest taking place in, what was the building called?
The Cannon Building.
The Cannon Building.
Yeah.
And it says it's Peter Griffin's hand, and it says insurrection with MAGA next to it. Mostly peaceful protest with the Democrat the D next to it. So this was a mostly peaceful protest. I found it funny at the time.
It's a good meme. Look, It's a good meme, but this kind of circles back to what we were saying before. It's like, again, like I understand the point. There is a point of like the hypocrisy behind it. But again, I wasn't going to make that point because I'm not going to advocate for the state cracking down on protesters and giving them more power to do so. Like, I don't think what happened to the J6ers was right. That applies universally.
To anybody, yeah.
And then again, these people,
it's a good point, yeah.
These people were made out to be actually by right wingers. These people were made out to be pro Hamas supporters. The group was called like Jews for Peace or something. They're not pro Hamas people. I looked into the group. It was founded.
If you want peace, you're pro Hamas.
By Noam Chomsky. They're against like Zionism and shit like that. They're not a pro Hamas group. They wanted a ceasefire. I even saw one of these Twitter pages I follow called Raw's Alerts. It's a pretty good like news page. It just tells you alerts. And it was like one of the signs they said. It said Jews for a ceasefire, and like you could see it in the photo that's what it said, Jews for a ceasefire. He misquoted it saying Jews ceasefire, like Jews say ceasefire or something like that. And I'm just like, what? Are you like you're being dishonest?
So there's a sign you could read, and he's saying it says something else.
Like, why are you being dishonest? This is a good page.
That's Mr. Orwell, 1984.
I've come to this page for news. That's pretty objective all the time.
Yeah.
But now the psyops worked on you. Now you're being dishonest about something I could see right in front of my face.
This is going to be a conversation going forward that I think we are in the time to expose the right.
Yeah, or just
I really do
be on top of them about whatever they're doing. My next tweet is by Reed Coverdale. This one is going to be for right-wingers. This is a lesson to be learned. Reed Coverdale says, you can build a wall. You can increase green card and visa restrictions.
Oh, I saw this.
You can fund more border security. But until you realize supporting the invasion and destabilization of countries overseas is the top contributor, you will always have migrants flooding the U.S. and Europe. Right? Talk about blowback.
I am the government, and I'm here to help you.
Dude, but the border crisis is blowback, right, of bad foreign policy that right-wingers are fucking supporting all the time. All the time, right? So, yes, I'm all for it, man. Build a wall. Fix the immigration problem. Deport people if they come here illegally. Whatever. But stop creating the scenario that makes them want to come here. Right? Like they can't get – you need to do all those things at the same time. But for some reason, right-wingers don't see the most critical part of fixing the border process.
You want to just take the CIA out of South America, and that's, quarter your problem right there.
We've been going after it in this episode, so we're doing our thing. All right.
We're going to get a knock at the door at the end of this episode.
The black car in the driveway. This is a good one. Okay.
All right. This is another picture. I laughed hysterically at this. It is another right to bear memes, and it's a picture of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And under Hunter Biden, it says banging whores, and under Joe, it says funding wars.
Yeah,
that's what this family does. They bang whores and fund wars.
Yeah.
Joe is one of the most pathetic presidents we've ever had. It's the only time in my life I wish I wasn't American, because then I could just tweet, "Hey, Joey Donuts, give me $1 million." And $1 trillion check would show up in my mail.
Yeah, you get more. You get more than you asked for. Yeah,
just giving money out.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't have enough time to do his that little clip there, but maybe we'll save it for next week. All right, my last tweet of the week is from Dave Smith, who we referenced a couple times in this episode, and it's about what we were just talking about too. Where he says the left may have supported what happened to people who entered the Capitol on January 6th, but they didn't do anything to them. The feds did. So if you support the feds cracking down, don't give me this shit about making your enemies pay. You're supporting your enemy. Again, this is exactly what I was saying before. these insane blue-haired leftists, like they're not the FBI. They're not, right? It's the FBI.
They're just giving other people power.
Yeah. So like, no, so then you're like a right-winger Trump MAGA person saying go and arrest them. You're advocating for the people who are like persecuting Trump right now. You're like on their side now. I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look, man. I'll name one name: Laura Loomer. She's like one of Trump's, biggest promoters. I can't believe some of the shit she said lately. Even when it comes to the war, like she even made a tweet about how like the Biden, like the U.S. intelligence even confirms that this airstrike on the hospital was this and that. I'm like, now you believe the U.S. intelligence community, Trump's like right-hand woman. You of all people, you're telling me that I should believe the U.S. intelligence agencies now. All of a sudden, the same people who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story to fuck Trump over. Come on, that's so obvious.
Now the U.S. intelligence agencies' morals are relative to her morals.
Yes, that's a good point, Captain. I like it. You're learning some psychology.
That's why we're exposing people here.
All right, last one.
What do we got here? Liberty lockdown with Clint Russell. Douglas Mackey will do 7 months in prison over a meme, while 50-plus former intel agency officials walk scot-free despite lying through their effing teeth about Hunter Biden's laptop. You tell me, which had a greater impact in terms of disinformation and election interference?
Yeah.
It was related to how we started this episode, man.
Right.
Were memes and QAnon really what, interfered in the election, or was shit like this? Was the political elite group behind the scenes fortified the election to save democracy?
Right. It's, at the end of the day, the biggest purveyors, as they say, of misinformation are the government most of the time. The Leon Panettas, and his ilk. So, yeah. That's the story, folks.
That's our show.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Captain, sign us off. Man, my computer is bugging out here right at the end. It's fun.
Hopefully it's got us.
Fun doing these live episodes. Can't wait to do the Halloween
sir.
special. I can't get us out of here, but go ahead, sign us off.
On that note, make sure you tune in next week for our awesome annual Halloween party. It's going to be a good time. Hopefully we won't talk too much politics.
It'll be the week after. It'll probably come out on Halloween. On Halloween day.
Very good.
We're gonna
wait for that.
Yeah, on next Friday. So
wait for that. It's going to be a good time. Hopefully it'll be a bit off topic. The drinks will be flowing. Laughs will be had, provided we're not in World War III. And on that note, thank you, Doom Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And adios.